necessarily the right interpretation. We don't know, but we see it every day. We see churches, we see synagogues, we see mosques as being targets, which is very sad, because you come here for a very peaceful purpose, just like any of the other congregations and the other faiths. Even though a lot of bad has happened in the name of whatever deity people pray to, 99% of the time it's done for a peaceful purpose. So whether we have some nutcase, some Australian and New Zealand shoot up a mosque, or whether we have some folks in Philadelphia shooting up a synagogue, or even a church, happens here too. We have church bombings, all those kind of things. It comes down to those very unusual people that when they're finally caught, when they're identified, guess what everybody says? Oh, we saw that coming. That's true. Because does somebody just wake up one day and go, I'm just going to go ahead and blow up a place, or I'm going to shoot up a whole bunch of innocent people? No. This is a process. It's a process of radicalization. And unfortunately, nobody pulled the brakes. And it was always possible. Even that clown in Australia, in New Zealand rather, who was Australian, he had social media posts that obviously friends of his, other people saw, and nobody pulled the brakes. And it's tough. It's very tough, because we live in a society where we don't really want to get involved anymore with other people's lives. We don't want to offend. One of my pet peeves is always, I love how we're in this society right now where you have people that are offended that you're not offended, and you have people that are offended that you are offended, which is just bizarre, right? But at some point, the warning signs are there. And it's up to all of us to identify those. Some people get disrupted on that path and sent on the straight path. It happens a lot more than you think. A lot of attacks have been derailed by the good people who said, not so fast, right? But can you avoid it? Absolutely not. Because when someone is determined to do something, it takes a lot to stop it. Right? So we're left with, what if the unthinkable happens, the unspeakable happens? What do we do? So there's a few things I want you to remember, and I always try to keep things in threes, because even though we're pretty smart in our world, we had this conversation earlier, if I gave every one of you all a piece of paper to write down 10 phone numbers of your friends and family, how many in you could really do it? I'm not raising my hand. I can write down 3, that's about it, right? So there are 3 words I want you to think about. It's avoid, deny, and defend. We're going to talk about each one of those, right? Have you ever driven through a neighborhood where all of a sudden that little spidey sense goes off and your hair stands on the back of your neck and you go, I shouldn't be here? You can kind of see the wolves circling around your car. That's what the FBI calls a clue, huh? We got to pay attention to what's going on around us. It's the situational awareness. So at all costs, we want to avoid conflict. So how do we do that here? Well, basically that means run. Okay? Don't stick around. It's always a tough call to make. People always ask me, well, what do I do in this? Well, I can give you a basic general guideline, but I can't tell you 100% what's going to happen, because I don't know what's going to happen. And it's the same thing in our line of work. We have a lot of tools on our belt. As you can tell, I carry 33 pounds of equipment on me. That may not sound like a lot, but I can assure you, when I'm running after a 16-year-old up the MARTA train platform, they usually beat me a little bit. Not by much, but they do, right? But there's a reason we have all this stuff. There's not a single thing on me that I may not have to use at some point, right? Is that me or? Hopefully it'll settle itself here. Okay. So this is basically a segment of preparation, but that's only equipment. The most important thing for us to prepare ourselves is our mind. And if we don't build this into our head, what we should be doing, then we all lose. There we go, we got it fixed. Martial arts. Has anybody ever taken karate or anything like that? Judo, anything, done anything like this? Okay. Would you say that your strength training? Actually, I don't like this. Would you say that your strength training was the most important? Or would you say that your mental preparation played a huge role in actually applying what you were taught, you know? And that's the whole thing. We can shock you with a new situation, and you may not be Arnold Schwarzenegger and be able to lift a car. But adrenaline is an amazing tool that we all have in our bodies. And if our brain gives us the right impulse to do what we need to do, we can move mountains when the time comes. We have about a minute and a half window on that. And then you better have another adrenaline dump, because otherwise this is going to go the other way, okay? Things do happen, okay? I was shot in 2000 by a guy, and I got to tell you, honestly, I didn't have a cranial shot. It didn't hit my spine. It was all in my chest. It was all in the muscles, and it didn't slow me down one bit. I never even realized I'd really been shot as severely. I thought it was just a graze wound, but your adrenaline keeps pushing you, and then your mind takes over. And I'll tell you what happened with me. I can still remember that little thing boiling up inside me saying, "The heck you did," right? And there was an amazing amount of anger that came up that forced almost superhuman strength. It was crazy, right? So again, our minds are the most important thing. And we need to prep our minds with something very easy to remember. It used to be that we would teach run, hide, and fight. That was a great concept based on what happened in schools like Columbine. Up until we got to a place called Virginia Tech. There was a Korean American student who had some mental issues, and he went in there with 2 guns and started shooting a bunch of kids after he chained the door. Now that takes a little bit more preparation. And it's one thing if you have a few guns laying around the house and you load up and by God you're coming into whatever place and you want to shoot people up. But you have to stop at the hardware store and get a lock and some chains and all this other stuff. So this guy was prepared. What was his ultimate mission? His mission was, I want to be that guy on Time magazine. I want to be that guy that has the highest body count. There's something really wrong with these people, right? But let's take this another step. We're in a society where it's all about me. Matter of fact, I should just be taking a whole bunch of selfies with you all in, right? And that's all about the recognition. Think about it. Facebook, Instagram, all those platforms, they're great to connect people, right? But what do they really do? Well, they pretty much give me an outlet to be narcissistic. They also practically require it. Because have you ever seen unhappy family photos on Facebook? We had a really crappy day, all of us together. No, right? That's what I call a fake book. So, but play this out. It's the same thing, okay? It's all about attention. I want to be heard because I can't be heard any other way, and somebody's gonna do me here. So here comes Henry Cho, Korean American, and decides he's just had a really horrible life, and by God, he wants to share that with everybody. We had a lot of kids hide under desks. Matter of fact, there was one girl, she got shot by him twice, she survived, hid under a table, and when he came back through the second time, well, he shot her again. But her brain kind of stopped at the whole hide part. Matter of fact, it totally focused on the hide part, not even on the run part, because she could have made a run for it. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to get people in that mindset that if you can get out at any point, try to stampede on out. I realize it's hard for parents. You don't want to leave your kids. You won't leave your kids. You will shield your kids with your own body. I totally understand that. But again, keep in mind, we're trying to give people a basic framework to just kind of remember. Avoid, deny, defend. We want to deny somebody access. So realistically, if someone was to come through that door right now, and I wasn't here, but if somebody was coming in to do anybody harm in here, at some point we need to make a decision to lock everything else down if we can, okay? Whether that means you run to the back and wedge the door shut, those are hard decisions to make. Those are super hard decisions to make, and we can go back in history, in millennia, where we've had to unfortunately lock the door on some people to save the majority. These are really bad sandwiches to eat. And you have a split-second decision to make. Are we going to lose everybody, or are we going to save somebody? I've always been of the opinion that the ones we're going to save are the ones that are about this tall. They still have their life ahead of them. If I have to check out today, I've had a great run. I'm good, okay? But these are tough decisions to make. Can this happen? Absolutely. It can happen today. It can happen tomorrow. It can happen a month from now. I don't want to stand here and tell you the world is coming to an end. It's not Armageddon. We just don't know what kind of crazy people we have sometimes. And by the same token, I don't want you to be overridden with fear. Because when you're afraid, who wins? The bad guys do. That's right. So it's all about us mentally preparing ourselves to avoid the confrontations. I realize you can't lock your doors. Churches don't lock their doors. Half the time they're open all night. You have access codes here, which is a great concept because at least my good friend Khalid and Abdul, I don't want to say pre-qualify people, but sort of do. I mean, I can't just go up here and say, give me the code to this thing, and I get it. So that's a great first step, right? But we all know that unfortunately, people that mean us harm are not all that stupid either. So what is their ultimate goal? Their ultimate goal is to get as much notoriety. They have a high body count. So would it make sense to come in here when there's 3 people in here or 300? It's a no-brainer, right? It's a target-rich environment, unfortunately. So again, a lot of these things I say, they're very cruel to talk about, but we have to talk about it. It is what it is. We want to defend ourselves. That's the third step. Because if I can't run away, and if I can't barricade that door, or this door, then it's got to be on. And at that point, you have to be mentally ready to do what you have to do, which you may never want to have to do. But it may take a fire extinguisher, something heavy. If there are 15 of us and we're willing to do what needs to be done, we can beat off a guy that's got a gun, I promise you. Because we will take this thing and beat him senseless with it, right? That's what it takes. We call it changing the channel. Changing his TV channel to the off signal. And used to be, for us old ones, we all remember TV kind of ended at 11 p.m. and there was this little signal. That was it. That doesn't happen anymore. But so the one thing I really want you guys to think about is, is there a way, for instance, that we can install something at this front door that's a quick lock from the inside, right? Granted, unless the door is wedged, he's going to have to use a code to get in. But if somebody was to get out here right now and he has a rifle in his hand or a pistol, that is what the FBI calls a clue. Nobody should stand there and say, now why would somebody have a gun in his hand here in the parking lot? Those are the 2 seconds that life just gave you as a, hey, do something, okay? So if that means there's a wedge in that door, we gotta kick that wedge out, close that door, and what do? Now granted, we have some brick on the outside, we have some of these buildings have cinder block that looks great in the movies. It doesn't work in real life. It's called get down and get out, okay? Move back as far as you can. You have to get as much sheetrock, as much stuff between you and somebody shooting through windows. Right? Those are some things to think about. If we actually have a penetration, again, we go back to that next thing. You know, where can we fall back to? And it truly means all of us are just gonna have to pick something up or throw our body weights on there, and 2 or 3 of us may not make it, but we've saved 15 others. Does that make sense? And again, it's a horrible thing that we have to talk about this at all, but nobody is immune. We used to have a term in this country called going postal. Who's ever heard that? In the 90s, that meant when somebody was going postal, because mostly postal employees who had a grudge, who got fired or disciplined, would go into their postal office and shoot everybody up in there. We don't use that term anymore. That hasn't happened for some reason. You must be happy now at the post office. I don't know. Okay? But these things happen. They happen on the job. They happen because they're domestic related. We have a thing in policing called, if I can't have her, nobody will. What does that mean? If she doesn't want to be my lover, then nobody will. That means I'm going to kill her and kill me. Unfortunately, in some of those instances, we've had other people try to intervene, and this became an active shooter scenario. You guys might have seen about 3 weeks ago, there was a young misguided lad in his early 20s who dressed up in some self-styled combat gear and was trying to attack a courthouse. Thankfully, the guy was an idiot. Why does somebody, why does somebody decide to go blow up a courthouse because they had a bad case? You might just be the one that's going there to get a marriage certificate, for crying out loud. So these are things to think about. Avoid, deny, defend. Let's talk about where you work. This is not just your house of worship, and I've kind of alluded to this before. I don't care if you work in a convenience store. I don't care if you work in a corporate office or a public building. Unfortunately, you have to keep this stuff in the back of your head. There are numerous examples of these things happen all over the country all the time. So, along with preparation, our mental preparation, our physical preparation to where we make our castle tighter, because we do that at home. Does anybody in here not have a lock on their door? Wait a minute. So when you buy a car, is the lock optional, or do you spend the extra money to get the lock? Right? We have that built in. And as my good friend here alluded, we have too many people that don't use it. Locks are there for a reason. Granted, locks keep honest people out of it, right? But if we leave everything unlocked, wide open, we're asking for it. We see this all the time, and I'm going to kind of divert a little bit. I don't care if you go to Walmart, I don't care if you go to the mall, I don't care. You could be in this parking lot. If you don't lock your car door, I promise you, you have just rolled the dice, and you will be the next winner. Especially if you leave something in your car, right? We have another 3-word thing. Lock, take, and hide. Lock your car, lock your home, take the stuff out of view. Okay? Take it with you. Hide it. The one thing I love more than anything is we have people that make a police report because they had their car broken into, and it's typically around Christmas. Christmas when everybody buys gifts. And there'll be a lady who pulls up in the mall parking lot or someplace, big box store, and she says, oh, they told me to lock my purse. And she gets out, and she puts it in the trunk, closes the trunk, and then leaves off. Well, the time to do that would be before you get to your destination so that not everybody sees what you're doing, right? We had a lady who had, in the summertime, true story, I was there, couldn't have made it up. She had her purse stolen out of her car. It was sitting in the passenger seat with the windows rolled down, and she went inside one of the big boxes with her driver's license and her credit card to pick something up that she had ordered. And then was absolutely incensed that I wouldn't get a crime scene unit out there, because I just had to say, lady, this is a 1-second crime. Somebody reached in, grabbed the handle of your purse and took it. I can't sample the air. Okay, we're not that advanced yet that we can do DNA testing on air samples. But this just goes to show you how head in the clouds a lot of our fellow human beings are. And sometimes we do it. Have you ever gone back to your car and realized you didn't lock it? Have you ever done it? Absolutely. Because we have so many things going on in our heads. The shopping list is 17 items long. Oh no, it was 18. What the heck was it? And we have just disrupted our train of thought, right? It's all about you gotta be situationally aware in this moment. Let's take another step into the direction of something which is very unusual, but it does happen, and that's bomb threats. This is what typically happens. We get a bomb threat at a corporate office, at a church, at a school. Hang on a second. Why would there be a bomb threat at a school? Oh, it's test day. Of course, I forgot. And let's see, the caller would probably be in the neighborhood of 15 to 18. Would that make any sense? And it's going to be the guy or the gal that didn't study, right? All right, so let's take those out. But we have one in the corporate office. We show up, and the first thing we say is, what makes you have this bomb threat? Is it a note? Is it a phone call? Did you see a device? We've had a lot of great luck with people making phone calls and us being able to pretty much knock on their door within 30 minutes. That's really awesome. I always love when they call from their home phone. It's really phenomenal, right? We've had cases of bomb threats where, yeah, it's not a good idea to drop your wallet right next to the package. Right? Most of these packages, again, are not going to be a real device. But then some are. I can remember pulling the guy over on I-20, and when I impounded his vehicle, I had a zippered bag in the back, and I just pulled him over for a speeding violation. He had a suspended driver's license. He's in my car, and I go up, and of course, what is he telling me? Don't look in the car. Well, that's what everybody says, right? Don't look at my car because I got 80 pounds of weed in the back. No, actually, this guy had 2 pipes. 2 pipe bombs in it. And it gives you a little bit of a pucker factor when you open the zipper up and you go, wait a minute, here's a metal pipe, there's some wires sticking out, and there's 2 end caps, and I am way too close, right? So we try to use, this is another cop humor thing, we try to use the thumb theory, right? So if I can put my arm straight out and put my thumb on that car, and if I can still see either side of that car, I'm too close, right? Well, I was very close because I'm right here. So, again, a bomb threat, we have some industry standards that we go by to verify and validate what we're dealing with. I hate to tell you, I'm not going to tell you those secrets right now because I don't need that to be out from anybody, because there's always some ear that the wrong ear will listen to this. But we have certain guidelines that we go by that validate or give us a little bit of a pause. But here's the reality of life. If we have a multi-story building Let's say it's a 20-story building and somebody says, there's a bomb in the building. Well, guess how this works? I basically have to go to the building owner or renter and say, first of all, do you want to evacuate? Because I'm not telling you to evacuate unless I see something that you're telling me does not belong here and it resembles a bomb. Part of the reason is because we've done that before in the past, and then of course we got a huge bill from XYZ corporate saying, hey, you disrupted our business for 3.5 hours and this is how much we lost. Yeah, well, sorry, I can't do that, okay? Can't pay you. But it comes down to that. We need to have somebody who is absolutely familiar with that floor to go with our cops. Because we don't know what's supposed to be here, what's not supposed to be here. You know, Mary could just figure out and say, wait a minute, that's Joanne's purse. No problem, right, move on. Don't ever second guess yourself if you ever find something in the front, at the front door or inside here that just doesn't taste right. We would rather come out 100 times for nothing than that one time not come. And very often these devices are very crude. Of course, you can go on YouTube and build just about anything right about now. Not just rebuild your transmission. I mean, there's stuff on there, you can build anything. You can make explosives and all kinds of stuff. It is not that super hard to do for somebody who's got half a brain. But the good thing is you do have video surveillance here, outside, inside. These are great investigative tools for us. It always comes down to that whole, when I always tell folks this, if I have a supervisor who is on call for some kind of incident that needs to be followed up on, unless it's absolutely obvious that as soon as somebody tells you the story, you go, oh yeah, we can do that tomorrow. Unless it's absolutely obvious right away and it comes to you, the second when you stand there and you go, should I send somebody or should I go out on myself? You've just answered the question. Does that make sense? Because if you stand there and you really can't make that decision immediately, it's time to call a cavalry, okay? Same with you guys. You see a box up here, I don't expect you to have to dig through that thing. It's 2019, right now it's a different world, you know? Could somebody send you a UPS package and drop it off? Absolutely. But if I know there's a package coming from XYZ Amazon with the dimensions of something that I expect, it's a no-brainer. People can't just, pull that out of their hair. But anyway, those are very, very important things for us to do because we need to really work on our situational awareness. Okay. So, how can we tell a bad guy? Somebody describe a bad guy to me. What's a bad guy look like? They all look the same, don't they? Oh, come on. We all actually have a slide. There's another program I do called Situational Awareness. It's about an hour and a half long, almost 2. And I have a slide up with all these fine, young, and old, good-looking guys. And everybody gets so warm and fuzzy, and they go, oh, yeah. Yeah, those guys can't be bad. And the next slide is I have their entire criminal history under it. Because people are manipulators. Have you ever dealt with a manipulator in your life, in your jobs, in your family? There's a reason I don't talk to half of my family. Some of them have spent more time in prison than I've been a cop. But while we want to believe not only in the good of people, we always have to be guarded. When somebody asks too many questions, it's one thing if somebody comes in here and says, hey, when are the worship times? But if at some point you get this flag that just goes up that says, he's asking questions that a Muslim wouldn't ask, right? Or even somebody who was interested in converting or joining the faith of Islam. Those are some questions that tell you right away there's something not right, and you got to listen to this, okay? So at this point, How hard is it for us to ask this person for their name, their contact information? Can we even email it? We can send you something. We can text you something. Does that make sense? And if it's an innocent person, what are they going to do? If you're really interested, you will submit your information to a like-minded person. Okay? That can be any one of you in the congregation. But the second they refuse, you know something's up. Okay? And at that point, again, you know, I know we've dealt with this on a few occasions, where there are some people that, you know, just raise a flag. As you all know, we had a gentleman here who came to worship. Actually, it's not true. He came to steal. He didn't come to worship. He came to steal out of the box, right? And luckily, we were able to catch him. And even though there are people who commit small petty theft crimes because it is a way for them to sustain their own life, this is also a community here that supports each other. You don't have to steal from this place. I would be highly shocked if you did. If somebody is really truly down and out, I'm looking at least 25, 30 faces right here that would help this person out. I'm totally convinced. This happens in every church, every synagogue, every mosque. It does in every temple. But again, we're also targets. Whether it's something as small as the thefts that this man was doing over and over, or whether they mean to mean you some harm. Don't be that guy or that gal who says, I wish I had picked up the phone. And we look for behaviorisms. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what you wear on your head. I don't care if you have a big beard. I don't care. Okay? I don't care who you pray to. Because this is one thing policing has taught me in my life. Well, let me say it. It's reinforced what was put into my head by my forefathers and family. We have two types of people in this world. There's good and there's bad. There's good and there's bad. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter where you came from. We expect you to be good. And I always cringe when I see people that try to identify themselves with a religion, with a race, with a gender, with a background, just to endear themselves to you, to try to get a favor, or I shouldn't even say get a favor, but to take something that you have that they're willing to take. And this goes back to the manipulators in the world, okay? Does anybody feel comfortable being able to identify a manipulator? Do you feel like 100% of the time you can nail a manipulator? As I'm here to tell you, you're going to get close. You're going to get to probably 60 to 75% of those people. You'll peg them right away as a manipulator. But some are so good, it takes a while. And then typically, you figure it out when it's too late. Right? So again, you know, it's the same thing. Love thy brother, but be guarded. Lock your door. Okay, lock. Listen, Dunwoody, Sandy Springs, Alpharetta, Roswell, those are relatively affluent areas, right? So we can drive through neighborhoods in the summertime and there'll be a garage door open, and I promise you, here's what's going to happen next. The car that's in there, the doors are unlocked, the keys are in it. There's a purse in it, there's a laptop in it, and the door to the actual house proper is unlocked. Does that shock you? Shocks the crap out of me, right? I can't believe this, but I'm a cop. My house is like Fort Knox. I have to use a deadbolt to get from my garage into the house. Every door I have is a deadbolt, okay? So, you know, maybe I'm overshooting the runway a little bit, but see, it's a little different story because I have people I've sent to prison for 20, 25 years who, on their parting gift to me, turned to me and said, "I'm coming to get you when I'm done." Right? So I look at this a little differently. I don't really care if you take my stuff, but I do care if you're going to be in my house at 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, it's not going to be a good day for them. But, you know, and I'm telling you this to obviously not motivate you to go look in somebody's garage, right? But people get so used to the mundane when nothing happens in their life. And then they go, "Oh, you know, I haven't locked my door in 6 years. Well, it's not Mayberry, USA, you know. We are no longer living in cities that are surrounded by high walls with moats and drawbridges that we know the thief is somewhere in this. We're living in a very mobile society. We have trains, buses, we have cars, we have stolen cars that transport criminals. And I gotta tell you, our cars, what are we without our cars today? Who walked here today? Anybody?
Fuels.
Okay, how far do you have to walk though? 2 blocks kind of thing? Yeah, okay. But if you lived on Ash or Dunwoody, would you walk? No. We go to Walmart to do our shopping, and where do we park? Well, as close to the door as possible, right? Because why would we want to walk an extra 50 yards? Right? What do Walmarts have nowadays on the roof? Tons of cameras. These cameras are amazing. They're totally amazing. So if you do have a nice car, I would highly recommend you kind of consider where you park, because if you're parking on the other side of a big van, like a big Sprinter van, nobody can see you stealing your car, I promise you. We're not going to have it, right? But the crazy part is this. We've had cases solved where people were stealing stuff, and we started going to the cameras on the inside, and they actually bought something with a little plastic card that has their name on it. It's amazing. Okay. Those things do happen, but they're very rare. Targets of opportunity will be taken advantage of. And who's to blame? We are, right? If we don't secure a castle on a consistent basis, goes back to what you said already, we can't just trust in Allah taking care of us. I think He's probably busy enough just making sure we don't get run over crossing the street every day, 100 times. So, again, all these things I said to you, they're not to make you feel like the world is coming to an end. This is a great place to live, great place to work, great place to worship, great place to play. This entire North End is relatively safe. What we deal with primarily is property crime. Stuff gets stolen. I used to work on the west side off I-20, and we had more person-to-person crime than property crime. So that means there are people stabbed, shot, beat over the head, but you name it, robbed, killed. You're not in this kind of neighborhood, right? That's the good thing. And there's a reason that people like to live in America. I'm not from here. I wasn't born in this country. I'm an immigrant. I'm not so sure I'd go back to Germany to live there, because it's changed a lot, right? But, each and every one of you that came from another culture, came from another country, and you got here as a young man or woman, there's something that keeps you here, and it's not necessarily just the ability to go to a 7-Eleven at midnight or to a Walmart 24 hours a day. This is a great place to live. We all have our problems, and we have our problems with violence. So that takes me to almost the next, it's almost the last point here, but one of my high horse things that I always talk about is, how have we become so violent in our society? Does anybody have any ideas? Anybody have any thoughts? Who's ever heard of a video game called Grand Theft Auto? Okay, Grand Theft Auto. Okay, so this game is in its 26th or 7th season. What's the object of the video game? Hey, it's just a video game, no big deal, right? So the object is this. I steal a car. I'm in the city and I steal a car. And then when the cops get behind me, what do? You boogie, you run. And then, meanwhile, as this game goes on, I'm losing my health. I'm losing my energy levels. So I have to replenish those. There are some ladies of the night that help you replenish those, and you also have, you steal another car that's got a gun in it. So now you can do an armed robbery, you can do a carjacking, you can hold people up for their money, you can steal their dope, you can do all these things, and you get better guns as we go up, and then at some point, we actually shoot it out with the cops. Is this something you would like to have your 5-year-old play? I mean, I gotta tell you folks, I go into some neighborhoods and I'm sick of it. For 20 years, Grand Theft Auto, the video game, has been a babysitter for little 5-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds. So what are we imparting on in their heads? That is acceptable behavior. That you run from the cops, you rob people, you take what you want, not just physically, but you take women, you steal their money, all this kind of stuff. So we have big companies that make gazillions on this stuff. They make tons of money on this, but you know how they get away with it? If you flip the box over on the back, it says, not to be purchased by somebody under the age of 18, right? But a 5-year-old plays it. And then we wonder why we have a corrupt society. It's hard enough that we have young men and women in this country, I don't care what race they are, grow up without an intact family. For you young ones, if you have an intact family and you have fathers and mothers that love you, or each one, just one each, you're lucky. You're very lucky. Because like you said before, the one person who loves you the most, who will always love you, is your mother. But we have kids right now who get adopted in a gang. And it may not be an official, publicized gang, but it's the little neighborhood thuglet group, right? Has anything good ever come out of that? You might end up being a rap star, but that's pretty much 1 in 10 million. The crazy part is that if it wasn't for religious institutions, for community get-togethers, how do we raise our children? And this is really where it all comes full circle. To me, all these things I deal with on a daily basis are a failure of parenting. We have families that have intact mom and dad structures. They have a nice home. The kids have an iPhone, maybe 2. They have all the toys they could possibly want, and they're still unhappy. What are they missing? That parental guidance, right? We oftentimes deal with people that have truly got everything, but nobody's ever told them no. Nobody's ever set boundaries. Nobody's ever set expectations. And that's a social ill that we have in this country. And in many other European wealthy countries, the same thing. Okay, I see this, I talk to buddies of mine that are European cops, they have the same problem over and over. But we're not really addressing it because we just kind of, oh, there's another show. So I don't have time for that right now, I gotta watch Shark Week, you know? And again, that's why full circle, this is so important what you do here. The responsibility that you take to raise your children is not just a responsibility of honor and pride for your family, but it's for the tribe that we call humankind. And again, I don't mean to preach to you here, I don't mean to make this boring thing, but this all goes full circle with us because we see this all the time. We see children that are 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, they don't have a support system, their little gang becomes a support system, and what do you have to do to be in that? What do you have to do to become someone with status in there? And it's typically some kind of criminal act that just leads from there. We have a lot of young people who get caught up in this stuff because they are juveniles and they know that the court system will kind of slap them on the wrist the first few times. When you turn 17 in the state of Georgia, you are an adult. There are two young men. One was 17 in one day and one was 17 in 2 days. And the one with the 17 in one day, he didn't know how to do math. Because he thought when we arrested him for the armed robbery with a firearm of a Waffle House that he did with his partner, that he was a juvenile. And I had to kind of do the dry erase board thing with the, okay, here's your birthday, this is the day when it happened, let's subtract that down, and you're 17 in one day. But let's play this out. That's a 90% of crime. That means armed robbery with a firearm means you're spending 18 and a half years behind bars. This guy was 35 years old when he came out. How long do you think he stayed out? Keep going. A week higher? 4 months. 4 months. Got rearrested for running from the cops. Armed robbery, possession of a gun by a convicted felon, cocaine, heroin, and a stolen car. Hang on a second. Does that sound like Grand Theft Auto? Yeah. He is one of those guys. Okay? He is one of those guys. And I implore you, we sit here all day and we talk about this till we're blue in the face, and yet we still have parents allow their kids to play this kind of stuff. And that's a direct result that happens. Okay? If I was to look at the whole group right here and say, who's ever played it, I don't want you to raise your hand. You know who I'm talking about. Okay? You all know. Be ashamed of yourself. But this is something to think about, okay? We're older now, we look at this from a different angle, but if you see your cousins, your nieces, nephews, your children, the friends of your children go down that path, that is exactly what I said earlier. You have to pay attention and have enough situational awareness that when things go a little askew, what's happening next? When a building is about to kind of go this way, what's going to happen? Is it just going to stop? No, right? This thing is going to collapse. Happens every time. And we have way too many young men and women who end up getting arrested, rightfully so. But I want you to think about this. National average, out of all the crimes we work, how many do you think we clear with arrests? 80%? How about 60? Who wants to buy 60? I'll give you that. Huh? No, not even close. Who's going to go for 20% of all the crimes committed in the United States, we actually make an arrest and have a conviction? Nope, not so fast.
10%.
We'll be lucky if we hit 10%. Because a lot of these crimes, we have nothing to go on. Remember the gal with the purse gone? I can't sample the air. Okay? Unless they use that credit card and I can get a picture. Okay, that's great, then I've got a photo, but unless somebody can give me a name with that person, what good is that? Nothing, right? So again, we can do a lot of things we couldn't do 100 years ago, 10 years ago. But there's a lot of stuff that happens that you will be a victim of, and I hope it doesn't happen to you, but it's most likely going to happen. That it'll be extremely frustrating, okay? Has anybody ever had their car hit? Okay, you're driving down the road, some moron rear-ends you because they're doing what? What are they doing? Oh, really? Oh, yeah, that's really important. Hey, Britney Spears just got a new album, Okay. And they drive off. Do you not feel absolutely violated, right? You feel like, my God, somebody's got to catch these people, right? Because they did a harm to me. The sad part is, unless you can give us a tag, or even a partial tag, it's going to be next to impossible, right? So a lot of this stuff happens, and by the same token, I want to encourage you to do this. If you're a witness, please come forward. Okay? If you see an accident happen at an intersection, at a red light, stop sign, I don't care what it is. It's typically those where it's I had the green light. Oh, I had the green light. And it takes that one person. It takes you to step up and say, I saw the light green for this person. You've just made a difference, you know. And really, just to sum everything up that I'm saying here, it's our job to make a difference in our world. Trust me, there's a lot of knuckle draggers. There's a lot of guys that are obviously a little bit wrong in the head that put this uniform on and, you know, come back every day and go, hey, let's do this game. Yeah, it's great, you know. Because, yeah, I'll be the first one to admit, I live Cowboys and Indians every day, you know, it's great. Remember we used to play that? Anybody? Oh, that's right, kids don't go out anymore today. But, you know, we used to be always beating the dirt, right? This is a little clue. This is before cell phones. We actually didn't have cell phones at one point in our lives. It's amazing. And for some reason, we still made it. But, you know, keep in mind that we're our brother's keeper. I know you do. It's just, do we really apply it? Right? Is there something wrong with saying, hey, I saw you didn't lock your car door. Would you please? Right? Because here's the thing. We have people that complain, oh, it took 35 minutes for the cop to get here. Well, that's because we might have 40 minutes backed up on crazy calls that realistically, if we didn't have to deal with somebody leaving a purse in a car that's unlocked with a window rolled down, you know, this is all a work product that we can't spend the time on. Does anybody have any questions? It doesn't have to be about any of the topics I talked about, but just about policing in general, criminal justice programs, how things work. Yes, sir.
You were mentioning about stepping forward if you have seen something or as a witness. Just as a kind of sharing an experience that I've had on the highway, just got off of 85, somebody kind of rear-ended somebody else. In those instances, do you recommend us stopping and waiting for the cops to arrive, or how do you propose that we offer our, I guess, witnessship?
Okay, so if it's a large agency, it's tough a lot of times just to call and have a dispatcher connect the dots to the accident. Mm-hmm. So let's say if you were in a rural, or if you were in a place like Dunwoody, for instance, you can call our dispatcher and say, please have that officer call me because I saw what happened, right? And as long as you can give me, I saw that red car hit the blue car, poof, I'm done, okay? Makes all the difference in the world. And again, the most contested ones are the ones with the red lights. Because it's amazing how obviously the lights must be wrong because everybody has green lights all the time. I don't know, didn't realize that happened. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Major. I know we have talked about it, but for our gathering here, those of us who are, or some of us who are interested in having a concealed weapon,
Sure.
what would be your advice, and is it helpful, and what is the process for them? Some of them are really
Sure.
interested.
Okay, so let me give you my personal view on life. I'm a lot different than most other cops. I appreciate the fact when somebody tells me on a traffic stop that they actually have a gun on them. I am a pro-gun guy. You know, there's a lot of debate whether that's right or wrong, but that's just kind of the way I feel. Firearms, any tool to defend yourself. And I'm sorry, actually, I should have, let me kind of weasel my way back a little bit. When we talked earlier about avoid, deny, defend, you have the right in any state of this union to defend your life at all cost. If you feel that your life or the life of a third party is in danger, you can use whatever tool to disrupt that activity and protect yourself or this other person. I'll give you an example. I'm in the bathroom of a stop and rob. What's a stop and rob? We call those convenience stores. That's cop humor right there, okay? And I come out, and I hear, as I'm coming out from the bathroom, give me all your money. What is that? What should that trigger? Bad stuff's going down.
Yeah.
I'm in the wrong place, right? Actually, I'm in the right place. But At that point, we don't even have to do any of this fancy TV garbage of stop, drop the gun. Guess what? You can shoot the guy right away, right? Because when he's pointing that gun at the clerk, how does she feel? That could be your wife, your sister, your niece, your mama, your grandmother, right? That is very terrifying. I've talked to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who have been robbed at gunpoint, and they'll tell you that the size of the gun, okay, the barrel was this big, right? Because that's how big it looks, right? So, full circle, again, you have the right to defend yourself. This is my personal feeling on it. If somebody comes to my house while I am there, what is he going to do? Because a burglar has a job, right? Now, burglars have a full-time job. I'll tell you that right now. They have better hours than you and I. Now, their health plans are not all that good, but their hours are 10 to 4. Why? And they don't work weekends either. They work Monday through Friday, 10 to 4. Why?
That's when you're out of the house.
That's when you are gone, right? Because they want to avoid conflict. They want your stuff. All right, somebody breaks the door down at 2 o'clock in the morning at my house. Are they coming for my TV? No, because he can wait a few hours and I'll be gone and he can take my TV. Well, if he can make it past the dog. But, so there's a reasonableness side to this, right? So if someone was to break into your door, you can't just shoot through the door. We have to be able to articulate that you were at a real threat level. So if somebody is taking an axe and he's beating down your door, you have to unfortunately wait until he's pretty much beat the door down and he's coming in. Then you can do whatever is necessary to defend you or your family, and or your family. Whether that's with a gun, with pepper spray, whatever choice you decide to make. And let's talk about pepper spray now. So, martial arts is a perishable skill. I've had a few black belts, and I gotta tell you, I'm not 20 anymore. I'm not that judo kid anymore. Unless you rehearse that on a continuous basis, sort of like being an imam, unless you keep reading a book all the time, you will forget some things. They will not be automatic. So firearms are certainly a great equalizer, but here's another solution I want to offer to everybody. I give this to everybody. REI, which is an outfitter here in Dunwoody, for instance, there's a few stores all over the place. You can even get it on Amazon. Sells a thing called bear spray. I've been up to Alaska, I've used it. It's very effective on grizzly bears. It's amazing, right? So let's see, grizzly bear, human being, slight weight difference, right? Maybe also a slight mentality difference, right? But this is what I tell everybody. If you don't want to be put in a position where you have to shoot a human being, it's not easy to deal with that. Okay? It's a different world. It's a dark world. You don't necessarily want to go down that, but it's better if you have to defend your own family. But the one thing I can tell you is when that guy's about to bust your door down and he's made a crack or something in your door, you can shove that bear spray right up there and hit that button, and I assure you it's over. Okay? He is gone. If somebody wants to carjack you, I'm not going to tell you to pull bear spray out unless you can, right? But if somebody really wants to carjack you, shoves a gun in your face, is your life worth your car that you're in? I don't know, mine isn't. You can have my car. At least long enough for me to do what I gotta do. But those are all decisions we have to make in our lives. And for you young folks out there, you will have to make those at some point, hopefully never, but you will have to make those decisions. There's always gonna be what we call a bully today. When I grew up, we had bullies too. Sometimes I got my butt whooped and sometimes I whooped theirs. It was a little different back then, I guess some people would have probably said I was the bully just because I beat up the kid that's 2 years older than me, but different story. But anyway, back to the guns. Georgia has a firearms permit that you can request from your local county probate court. Whatever county you live in, You can go there. They will fingerprint you, send that through the system to make sure of two things: that you're not a convicted felon, and that you're not in a mental institution at some point. There's a few things you have to attest to, and then it goes from there. At that point, you can own as many firearms as you want. You can own as many calibers as you want. I would ask you that if you're going to carry a gun, that you have it concealed. You don't have to necessarily do that, but it avoids problems. Because what do we get next? There's a guy walking down the road, and he's got a gun strapped to him. Well, we get these calls all the time. That may be a perfectly legal thing, right? But is it smart? No. Because if you're truly trying to defend yourself, the folks that walk around with it prominently out, well, they're really saying, don't mess with me, I got this, right? But we'll constantly get the calls on you guys. And it's not a comfortable situation for the cop or for you. So we appreciate the folks that actually do it the right way, the smart way. It's not necessary. It doesn't, you don't violate a law by doing that. If you have a firearms permit, you can certainly carry that puppy out. And you'll see it sometimes. You'll go to Kroger and you'll see people with a gun strapped on. And that is perfectly legal when they have that permit. The use of it, though, always is what will be debated by several teams of lawyers for about 2 years. And you have approximately 0.35 seconds to make that decision if you're going to do this or not. Okay? When we as a cop have to use force, we basically go through not only a 6-inch legal book and all its ongoing court decisions that happen every single year to either make it better or worse, plus a policy manual that's about 13 books deep, right? And you have to make that decision in truly less than half a second, because otherwise you'll die. Right? So experience certainly helps with that, We do a lot of use of force training with our folks, and we have different levels of force, okay? So let's talk about this for our police side. My first level of force is I show up in a uniform. And most people are astonished by that, but that's true because we represent the law, right? So the next thing is, my next level of force is, I can go hands-on with you. And sometimes I may just have to do some wrist manipulation and put you in a wrist lock and put the handcuffs on and take you in. Some people, it's gonna be full-blown on and on, right? Some people just need to taste a little bit of pepper spray, right? Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. There are some people who it doesn't affect. The vast majority it does. But there's a flip side to that. Because when I hit you with that pepper spray, what do you think is going to happen with that blowback? All that mist is still around there. As we're still fighting, I'm going to be coughing too. I'm going to have my eyes slammed shut too. So it's a great tool in some instances, but not every one of them in our line of work. Because with the private citizen, your goal is, get away, right? Well, my goal is, I got to put hands on you. I got to put you in handcuffs, right? Different application. The next thing is we have this thing called a taser. Everybody's heard of that, right? Everybody's seen video, body cam video of a taser being used. That thing is not as effective as people think. Because we have people move, we have clothing disrupted sometimes. And I'll be frank with you, if a guy has a crowbar in his hand, I'm not going up against him with a taser. Does that make sense to anybody?
Absolutely.
Because I can take that crowbar and start doing this number. Because the taser works on probes coming out. They're wire guided, basically. If I can disrupt any one of those things by just twirling that thing, it's over. And can you kill me with that crowbar? And can you kill me with that crowbar? Absolutely you can, right? So when you see this on TV, all these people say, why didn't they tase him? Well, you know what, I hate to tell you, but when we're this close, I'm not putting my life in the hands of a little electronic device that might even have a computer chip failure and not work. So it's, we always try to be one level of force above the assailant, because our job is to go home at the end of the day. If you decide to go the firearm route, I would highly advise you to seek some good training. You need to read up on the laws, but it's a perishable skill. Again, it's not as easy as people think. Most gun encounters are anywhere from 7 to 11 feet, and they last tops 2-3 rounds. So, here is the big question. If you guys can answer this correctly, we're going to be done. Otherwise, we'll be here for another 5 hours. All right, in the movies, the guy gets shot with a .45 caliber round. How many feet does he fall back? He gets hit by that bullet, and how he goes through that wall? Okay, forget that. That is not reality. That is movie. We just had a shooting in Athens where a guy got shot 5 times in the chest, gets on all fours, and gets back up and attacks another officer. It's the kind of stuff that would put us all down. You would think, but it doesn't. The human body is an amazingly resilient piece of machinery, and it's powered by this thing. And what I said earlier, the mental strength is more important than the physical strength you bring to the table, because your physical strength is going to get supercharged by your adrenaline. And this is when you see this stuff on the news, and you go, what? Why do they have to shoot him 5 times? Well, because the guy's not going down. It's not in the movies. We're not talking Dirty Harry where one round puts the guy 15 feet behind him on the butt. It doesn't work that way. Right? And unless it hits something very vital, it may not happen. We can shoot a man in the heart and he has 7 seconds to kill us. That is a long time. There was a shootout in the 70s in Miami with the FBI and some local cops involving 2 Army Rangers who were Vietnam veterans and who ended up robbing banks. They had this shootout, and one of the first bullets sheared off the main perp's aorta. It's kind of important to have your aorta attached to your heart. For those of you in the medical field, This gun battle went on for 2.5 minutes. He pretty much took out 13 people, either hurt them or killed them. And I'm telling you, it was a complete gun battle in the neighborhood. And he gets his buddy in the car, gets himself in the car, and puts it in drive, and is about to drive off when one of the severely hurt cops finally finishes him. But this is what the power of the mind can do. Here's a man clinically dead. Right. So, and again, I'm not saying all this to scare you guys to death. It's just a reality, We have very few people that are that determined, but all it takes is to be in that wrong spot at the wrong time. Again, I wish you all the best for everything. If you have any other questions, please shoot them out. Otherwise, I'll let you guys go. I don't want to drag you all out here. I've already talked too long anyway, but if you have any other questions, you can gladly hit me up while I'm still up here at the podium. And I want to thank you for the time that you spent with me. I hope I didn't bore you too much, and I hope your legs are okay. A lot of you have been sitting on your legs and moving around, because I know that's not super comfortable. It's a long time, but anytime you want me to come back and talk about some other topics, I'll be glad to do that. Okay? Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Major Oliver, for the beautiful presentation. Those priceless advices, especially when you have to make those decisions in those 1 or 2 seconds. Those are really they'll come in handy, inshallah, whenever we're in that situation. Hopefully, we won't be, inshallah. But thank you again. You're welcome anytime over here. Whenever you want to stop by, pray with us, eat with us. Just just talk to us, whatever you want to do, inshallah. And are you heading out right now?
No, I'm just slowly backing up.
Yeah, so if anyone else has any other questions later on, you can, talk to Major Oliver directly. and we'll be getting ready for Salah right now, inshallah. So we're gonna call the adhan and then we'll be praying shortly, inshallah. Jazakallah for coming out. Jazakallah for spending your day here with us, and have a lovely rest of the day.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
Okay.